It's always nice when you wake up on a Saturday morning and get some head. Sadly, it wasn't the kind of head I was expecting. Here is the 1/6 scale third party Deathstroke head sculpt that I got from 16kit.com. Here's the intro. Okay, before we get started, I just want to do a quick update. On my last video, we did the Toys Era 1/6 scale Joaquin Phoenix Joker figure, and I said that the cigarette was missing out of the box, and for all intents and purposes, it was. I couldn't find it anywhere. Everyone said, look in the packaging. I looked in the packaging. They said, look in the box. It might have rolled out. I looked in the box. I looked on my table downstairs. I looked at the shelf here. I looked everywhere for this thing, and I couldn't find it. But strangely enough, it ended up in a very weird place, because when I was inspecting the Toys Era Joker figure after the review, I noticed that this was found, and as you can see, there is a seam here, and that is actually a sticker. And what happens is they've rolled this up to sort of stick it down, and you can see mine's a little bit open. If you pull this open, it reveals some of the sticky side, and what happened was this had actually had the sticker unravel a little bit, and it fell out of the packaging and it rolled up into the back of the Joker figure, and this was stuck up inside the back of his jacket. I have no idea how the hell it got all the way up there. I know you guys were, losing sleep over it. You were really having a bad time. Where's Billy's cigarette from his Toys Era Joker? Oh God, I hope he does find it. I don't think I can relax until he can. Well, now you can relax, because I found it, okay? Crisis over, we can move on with our lives, and thank you everybody for your letters of concern, your emails of worry. It is truly appreciated. So obviously the Hot Toys Deathstroke is a really nice figure. It's so well designed. It's actually more articulated than you would expect for this style of figure. It's from the video game Arkham Origins, I think. Yeah, definitely Arkham Origins. One of the main criticisms people had of that figure was it didn't come with an unmasked head sculpt. So the third party companies listened, and they decided to release their own version to go with this figure. And I have to say, it's actually a pretty nice head sculpt, all in all. There is some amazing detail all the way through this. It's definitely got the really nice skin texture all the way through. They've even managed to put a scar around the eye, and they've actually painted it really well. You can see it's not messy. The skin flecking's very nice. The one problem that they could have had is with this eye patch. You can see that these parts here could have been an absolute pain to paint, and they could have been very messy, but they seem pretty clean overall, especially as I'm having a look at it. I mean, with the naked eye it's probably a bit easier, but when you bring it right up to the camera, I'm still not seeing any real blemishes in the paint app. And then you've got the strap around the back, and that's where it could cause problems, because there will be bleed off usually. But that seems pretty clean. And you can see the sculpted hair is very nice. It's very grey. It's got dark undertones all the way through. Many different colours. At least 3 I can tell. And then you've got the eye. And the eye is nice and glossy. Nice and straight. And they've done like really nice sculpt work in and around the cheekbones here, which works really well. And this sort of grey beard, because this is difficult to do. Facial hair is very hard to do. When you're sculpting it, it can come off looking too lumpy and not very effective. But they seem to have done a good job here. There's lots of little tiny hairlines in there to make it look semi-real. But obviously it's not super real, because it's meant to represent a video game character, and I think the video game characters were slightly hyper stylized, so they managed to represent that pretty well. And it's definitely a very nice looking Deathstroke, don't you think? You can tell that that would definitely be what he'd look like underneath the mask. They've even gone in and done some 5 o'clock shadow around here to coincide with the actual facial hair, to make him look a bit more aged. You see the wrinkling and furrow in the brow. They've actually darkened in the lines in the grooves here. I very much like that. You can see there's lots of detail in that ear. It was very, very deep. Very well sculpted. And the seam line, let's see if we can identify the seam line on this. There it is. just about here. Almost invisible, but not perfect. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? I like it. I think it comes off pretty well, and it definitely is very close to the prototype that they showed off. So let's get this thing on the figure and see how it works. Okay, and when you're taking this helmet off, you want to be careful, because when you're pulling it, it might feel like this neck is going to come out as well, but it is separate from the head here. So you're better off just being able to try and keep that neck held down while simultaneously trying to pop this head off. Some people struggle to put the head sculpt fully on to begin with. They can't see what's going on, but the neck adapter can come out of this head sculpt. It's very easy. In fact, it came outside of my head sculpt, so it might come the same to you. So what you can do is, if you just warm it up for a couple of seconds with a hairdryer, you can easily plop it on just on there like that, and then put the head sculpt on. That way you will completely avoid damaging anything around the neck, but you also avoid damaging the head. Sometimes when you're struggling to push these things on, they can fly out your hand and bounce around on your shells and get scratches. But obviously put the neck adapter on first, and then you can easily just slot this head on nice and firmly. And there it is on the body. It looks very nice, doesn't it? There is some great detail in this head sculpt. It really works with the actual armor and the suit. It does look quite interesting. Obviously you might want to be able to have him holding the helmet like that, but you've kind of got to hold it to the side a little bit, because you can still see the eye in here, so you can't cover that up. It would have been nice if you'd been able to remove that, and that way you could actually just have an empty helmet, but obviously you can't do that with this. So if you are going to pose him with this held in his hand, you're going to have to do it at an angle so you can't see, which is a shame, because you always want a fair amount of orange and blue when you're viewing it, because obviously that's the style of the character. But if you do it like that or hide it like that, you can see some orange, but it's mostly blue, which is a shame. Overall, it sits very nicely on that neck peg, and because of the fabric underneath, it actually tucks in underneath the head really nicely, so it's not garish, it's not pushing out to the sides, it slots on very well. They've designed this clearly and obviously for this figure, and it's really working well for me. I do like it. It's definitely, I'd say it's on par with Hot Toys. It's like it was always meant to go on this body, and there's no problem. And you can see the fabric underneath is actually creasing a little bit, which looks really cool. I really like that. It's like he's actually genuinely a real person wearing a costume, which is awesome. You can tilt the head any way you like, and because he's got the full articulation in the neck, you get lots of articulation in the head. You can have him looking down and thinking very deeply. He can look all the way up like Batman's coming down to get him, and he's ready. I mean, you've got to give props to Hot Toys for still being able, you could put any head sculpt like this on there and you'd still probably get lots of decent articulation out of it, because that's the way it is. But then you can always sort of ride it up and get him really high necked if you really want to. Just put him down again. And that complements the figure so much. Okay, so I've just put him into a little sort of really cool action pose, and you can see that head sculpt works really well with this design. I don't actually know who made this head sculpt. It was just advertised as a third-party head sculpt from 16kit.com. I don't know if it's being sold anywhere else, but it's definitely available on the site at the moment. So if you fancy picking this up for your Deathstroke, I highly recommend you do. It's definitely a great alternative to the masked head sculpt, and it's definitely Hot Toys quality. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe, and if you could do me a favour now, if you can get the fuck out of my cave. I've got a lot of rearranging to do, and there is so little time to do it. Bye bye. Because I always like my characters to be wearing their helmets where possible. Fuck!